You're fine. That's what you told your coworker this morning. That's what you texted your mom last night. That's what you whispered to yourself in the mirror before walking out the door. But somewhere between the parking garage and your front seat, or between the bathroom door clicking shut and the shower turning on, something else happened entirely. No audience. No explanation. Just you, and the tears you've been holding back since 9 a.m. Here's what no one talks about. The people who seem the strongest in every room are often the ones completely falling apart in private. And psychology has a very specific reason why. In this video, we're going to go deep. We're going to look at the hidden psychological machinery behind secret crying, why certain people do it, what it's actually doing to their brain and body, and most importantly, whether it's quietly protecting you or slowly destroying you. Because the answer isn't what most people expect. Stay with me. Picture a Tuesday afternoon in any office in Chicago, London, or Sydney. Someone at that office, maybe someone a lot like you, just got talked over in a meeting. Again. A project they spent 3 weeks building got dismissed in 40 seconds. A passive-aggressive email hit their inbox right before lunch. And then, because life doesn't pause, 3 people asked them for favors before 2 p.m. And through all of it, they smiled. They nodded. They said, "No worries, I'll handle it." Because that's what they do. That's who they are. But by 5:30, when that person finally sits alone in their car in a half-empty parking structure, the mask comes off. The steering wheel becomes the only witness to everything they couldn't say all day. This isn't a rare experience. Millions of people live this exact double life, composed on the outside, quietly breaking on the inside. And most of them have never once told another person it happens. The question psychology asks isn't, why are they so emotional? The real question is, why are they so determined that no one finds out? To understand this, we need to go back. Way back. Not to your childhood. Not even to your grandparents' generation. We need to go back roughly 200,000 years. Early humans didn't survive because they were the biggest or the fastest. They survived because they were social. They lived in tight-knit groups, and within those groups, reputation was everything. Status meant safety. Perceived weakness meant being left behind, sometimes literally. Showing emotional distress in front of the wrong people wasn't just uncomfortable back then. It was dangerous. So the human brain developed a remarkably sophisticated filter. A built-in scanner that constantly reads the social environment and asks one question. Is it safe to fall apart here? In a boardroom? No. At a family dinner with relatives who judge everything? Absolutely not. But alone, in a locked space, with 0 witnesses? The brain finally exhales. Evolutionary psychologists call this context-dependent emotional release, the instinct to save vulnerability for safe environments. It is not a flaw in your personality. It is one of the oldest and most intelligent survival tools your species ever developed. You are not broken. You are ancient. Now let's get specific, because what happens inside a person who suppresses emotion all day is genuinely remarkable. When something painful happens, a sharp comment, a disappointment, a quiet humiliation, a small almond-shaped region deep in your brain called the amygdala fires instantly. It doesn't think. It doesn't analyze. It just reacts. It floods your system with stress hormones. Your throat tightens. Your chest compresses. Your eyes begin to sting. Your body is ready to cry. But then, a fraction of a second later, the front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, social awareness, and long-term thinking, steps in like a firm executive walking into a chaotic meeting room. Not here. Not now. Shut it down. And so begins one of the most exhausting invisible battles a human being can fight. Neuroscientists describe emotional suppression like holding a beach ball underwater. It takes constant pressure, constant effort, constant energy, and the ball never stops pushing back. This is why people who cry in private often feel physically exhausted by midday, even when they've done nothing strenuous. The fatigue isn't from the workload. It's from the relentless internal effort of keeping everything locked beneath the surface. And here's the part that should make everyone pay attention. Suppressed emotion doesn't disappear. It accumulates. Researchers call this emotional load, a kind of psychological debt your nervous system keeps a running tab on. Every feeling you push down, every moment you say "I'm fine" when you're not, gets quietly added to the balance. And eventually, the bill comes due. That's why the tears, when they finally come, don't feel proportional. You're not just crying about today. You're crying about last Tuesday. About a comment from 6 weeks ago. About something someone said 3 years back that you never let yourself fully feel. The shower isn't dramatic. It's overdue. This part is fascinating, and most people have never stopped to think about it. Why is it almost always the car or the bathroom? It's not random. Environmental psychology has a very clear explanation. For your brain to release its emotional defenses, it needs a physical signal. A concrete, sensory cue that communicates, you are no longer being watched. The car does this perfectly. It's a sealed, private metal space. Tinted windows. Sound insulation. A locked door between you and the entire social world. The moment that engine shuts off in a quiet parking lot, your nervous system reads the environment and begins to lower its guard. The bathroom operates on the same principle, with an added layer. It is the only room in most homes that comes with a social agreement attached. When that door is closed, no one knocks. No one enters. That social contract is so deeply embedded in Western culture that even young children understand it. You are, for that moment, untouchable. And the shower. The shower is doing something even more sophisticated. The sound of running water creates what acoustics researchers call broadband noise. It masks other sounds, including the sound of crying. Your brain knows this. On some level, you chose the shower not just for warmth, but for cover. But there's more. Warm water flowing over your skin activates the same neural pathways as physical touch. Your nervous system, your body's entire threat response system, begins to calm. Some researchers believe this sensation carries an echo of the earliest safety we ever knew, from long before we could form memories. The result? The moment you step under that water, your prefrontal cortex lets go of the beach ball. And everything you carried all day finally rises to the surface. So who are these people, exactly? Because not everyone does this. Some people cry openly, freely, without much hesitation. They sob at commercials. They tear up in public. They process out loud. But the private crier is different. And the difference almost always traces back to a specific set of learned beliefs. Clinical psychologists have identified a consistent pattern among people who suppress emotion in public. They tend to be high-functioning caregivers, people who, at some point in their lives, absorbed a quiet but powerful message. Your feelings are less important than other people's comfort. Maybe they were the oldest sibling in a chaotic household. The one who held things together while the adults couldn't. Maybe they grew up in an environment where emotional expression was seen as weakness, where toughen up was the default response to pain. Maybe they watched someone they loved fall apart, and made a silent internal vow, I will never put that weight on anyone else. Whatever the origin, the result is the same, a deep, almost reflexive instinct to contain, to absorb, to process alone, in the dark, so that no one else has to deal with the spillover. Psychologists call this the fear of emotional burdening. And people who carry it are often extraordinary, empathetic, reliable, quietly heroic in ways that no one fully sees. But there is a cost. And it's steep. Here is where we have to be honest. Crying privately is not inherently harmful. In fact, for many people, it's a genuinely effective release valve. The problem isn't the behavior itself. The problem is what it communicates to the people around you. When you consistently walk out of that bathroom dry-eyed and smiling, when you show up every single day performing strength you don't feel, the people in your life learn to believe the performance. Your partner stops asking how you really are. Your best friend assumes you have it together. Your family stops checking in. Not because they don't care, but because you have convinced them, expertly, consistently, that there's nothing to check in about. And slowly, without meaning to, you find yourself completely alone inside a life full of people. Mental health researchers have a term for this particular trap: high-functioning emotional isolation. It's the experience of being surrounded by relationships while feeling fundamentally unknown by everyone in them. You give. You support. You show up for everyone. But you have quietly removed yourself from the list of people who are allowed to receive. And that, over time, does something very specific to the human psyche. It doesn't break you all at once. It's more like erosion, slow, quiet, invisible until the day you realize the ground beneath you has been hollowing out for years. The bathroom was supposed to be a pit stop. For too many people, it becomes a permanent residence. So what do you do with all of this? The answer isn't to stop crying in private. That would be like telling someone to stop breathing through one nostril, technically possible, completely beside the point. The real work is about expansion. Slowly, deliberately expanding the number of spaces where you feel safe enough to be honest. The first shift is permission. Start giving yourself permission to acknowledge what you feel before it reaches critical pressure. Not dramatically. Not publicly. Just internally. In real time. When something stings at work, instead of immediately suppressing it, try this. Take one slow breath and silently name it. That hurt. I'm angry. I'm exhausted. You don't have to say it out loud. You don't have to act on it. Simply acknowledging the feeling to yourself begins to reduce the pressure that builds up over hours. Small releases prevent catastrophic ones. The second shift is selective vulnerability. You do not have to open up to everyone. That's not the goal, and for many people, it wouldn't feel safe or appropriate. But somewhere in your life, if you look carefully, there is likely one person. One. Who has earned a level of trust that the others haven't. A friend who doesn't flinch. A partner who has stayed. A sibling who has seen worse and never left. Start there. Not with everything. Just with something true. I've actually been struggling lately. 5 words. That's it. Watch what happens next. The third shift is the hardest one. It requires changing a belief you may have held for most of your life. The belief that asking for support is a burden. That showing pain makes you a liability. Here's what the research actually shows. When you allow someone who loves you to be there for you, when you let them see something real and raw, it doesn't weaken the relationship. It deepens it in ways that years of surface-level interaction never could. Vulnerability isn't the opposite of strength. It is strength. Just a different kind than the one you've been performing. There's a kind of person that most people never fully understand. They're the ones who hold the room together. Who remembers everyone else's bad days but never mentions their own. Who laughs the loudest at dinner and sits alone in the car afterward, finally letting the day come undone. If that's you, and if you've made it this far, I think it might be, I want you to hear this clearly. The tears you cry in private are not evidence of weakness. They are evidence of everything you've been carrying. Every weight you lifted so someone else wouldn't have to. Every moment you stayed standing when you deserved to fall. You are not two different people. You are one extraordinarily complex person doing something genuinely difficult, surviving inside the tension between how much you feel and how little you allow yourself to show. But please, somewhere in your life, in one conversation, with one person, let the door open a little. Not because you have to. Because you deserve to be known. If this video reflected something you've never quite heard put into words before, share it with someone who needs it. It might be the closest they've ever felt to being understood. I'll see you in the next one.